Stay tuned to the end of this video to a word for our patrons. Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star, or did already roll that 5-star. So, before I even do the usual intro, I should say, hey, this video is late because I've been sick. I probably still sound a little sick, and you may hear some weird edits where I've cut around me coughing. But I'm well enough to record the video, so we're gonna do it. I greatly appreciate your patience and support in this time, but I finished the script on a Monday, and then I was sick for like a week. Like I said, it's still over a week later, and I'm still kind of sick now, but we're doing it. So let us return you to your regularly scheduled script, because I hope you've been doing your stretches, Chad. We've got a heavy hitter for Wanted today. We're going to talk history, folklore, mechanics, and more. If this is your first time watching it. For Minamoto no Tametomo, a new permanent SSR archer, and he is a big boy, so I hope you're ready for a new type flash. I would have loved to put all kinds of Gundam sound effects in here, but I am concerned it would be obnoxious to keep doing, like, the stair-step noises and, like, you know, beam sabers and new type flashes. We'll just stick with the intro gag. So to begin in our usual order, history. Minamoto no Tametomo, also known by the name Shinzei Hachiro, was born in 1139, the son of Minamoto no Tamayoshi, and thus younger brother to Minamoto no Yoshitomo, who is the father of Yoritomo and Yoshitsune. So he's Ushi's uncle if you're not keeping up. Tametomo was a pretty famous warrior in his time. The Hogen Monogatari and other historical works describe him as being over 7 shaku tall, which would be the equivalent of over 2 meters, and that his left arm was about 12 centimeters longer than his other arm, and he used a powerful bow other men struggled to draw. Contemporaries are even quoted as saying Tametomo was better than all his ancestors and possibly all members of his clan to come after at archery. However, Tametomo was known to be violent and rambunctious, and according to his geography, he was banished to the island of Kyushu, which at the time was also known as Shinzei, at the age of 13. That's right. That's when he was a problem. This didn't stem from being a gangster, though, however, as he supposedly became a warlord and conquered all of Kyushu, hence being known as Shinzei Hachiro. In 1154, an imperial order was sent for Tametomo to appear at the capital for all his sieging and fighting, but he did not comply. He just ignored that shit. But other things were brewing at this time. Tametomo's father, Tamayoshi, was dismissed from his imperial position in 1155, apparently related to the not obeying the imperial summonsing. This caused Tametomo to actually return to Kyoto with some of his best warriors. And in the next year, 1156, there was the Hogen Rebellion, hence the name Hogen Monogatari earlier. It was a very brief civil war over succession between the faction of the retired Emperor Sutoku. This was joined by Tamayoshi, Fujiwara no Yorinaga, and Taira no Tadamasa, as well as Tamayoshi's younger sons, including Tametomo, and the newly elevated Emperor Goshirakawa, who was joined by the head of the Taira, Kiyomori, the son of the regent Fujiwara no Tadamichi, and Tamayoshi's eldest son, Yoshitomo. As reported in the Hogen Monogatari, the battle was brief but intense. At a war council, Tametomo suggested a night attack. He was well known for suggesting night attack, but he was denied, and correctly predicted that his brother Yoshitomo would do the exact same thing. The battle was very fierce, but Tametomo held the west gate with his archery units and was reported to use exceptionally heavy arrows, which were excellent at piercing armor. One of his shots was said to have pierced one samurai and hit the man behind him, and he repelled the Taira force, but came into direct contact with his brother, Yoshitomo. But Tametomo was able to hold out despite being outnumbered, and Yoshitomo received permission to set the palace Otoko was camped in on fire, which scattered his faction's forces and forced Tametomo and his father to flee. So Tametomo held out very admirably, got several famous or infamous exploits of archery out of the way, but they set the palace on fire, which is really hard to defend against. Tamayoshi was said to be tired of fighting. He retired to become a monk, but was placed in the custody of Yoshitomo, but Yoshitomo had him executed. This was generally seen as a bad look, but that's not directly related to our current narrative. Tametomo was eventually captured and was only spared by having his left arm damaged. I'm unclear on the exact translation here. I've seen a couple different versions. Some say, or seem to translate, that he had tendons cut out of his left arm. Others say that his elbow is broken. But After this, they banished him to Oshima Island. The injury didn't stop him, though, because his bow skills eventually returned. Physical therapy does wonders. And Tametomo could not be contained, so he started rampaging again. He eventually took over the Izu Islands after marrying the magistrate's daughter and declared independence from edicts and taxes. But in 1170, his luck ran out. The official lord of the islands, Kudo Shigemitsu, received imperial permission to rein him in for seizing taxes and departed with a large force upward of 20 ships. According to legend, we don't have any eyewitness accounts here that are trustworthy, but according to the legends, he realized that the jig was up. Tametomo killed his own son, Tamayori, who was born on the islands, rather than have him be in the battle, but wanted to fire one last shot, so he did, and allegedly sunk a warship which may have held upward of 300 men. The counting units are a little sketchy. He was then allegedly the first samurai ever to commit seppuku by slitting his belly. That said, though, the legends don't stop there. According to the local folklore of the Ryukyu Islands, Tametomo didn't actually commit seppuku. He fell into the sea and washed up in Okinawa. It said there that he married the daughter of a local chieftain, and then their son went on to go become King Shunten. So, integrated deeply into the mythology of the Okinawa area. This myth, along with the events in the Hogen Monogatari, would become the basis for Takizawa Baken's Shinsetsu Yumiharizuki, a historical fiction which would blend the more supernatural anecdotes into Tametomo's legends. In general, Tametomo is a pretty popular subject for art as well, not only with the Yumiharizuki illustrated by Hokusai, but while searching for Tametomo, there were so many paintings of his escapades, him fighting off smallpox demons, washing up on an island full of women where Amaterasu magically lets them speak Japanese so they can join the rest of the islands, lots of other things. So he was clearly a literally larger-than-life guy that people really like to write about, despite the fact that his historical relevance is mostly just he really was fighty and liked to rampage around and shoot arrows at things. But, people abhor a simple ending, so we like to mythologize things. Anyway, we're going to move on to lore and ignore all of that because fate has bamboozled you. Minamoto no Tametomo is an anti-Oni machina built from recycled parts of Setsu Armor Kumano, aka the Golden Huge Bear, by the Minamoto clan. Fortunately, the frequency of yokai and Oni attacks was reduced before it could be put into service. This would mean that Tametomo is technically based on Olympian technology, as the Golden Bear is probably. It's never explicitly defined, but it's presumed to be based on the remnants of Ares' divine body. Unknown if this is related to Okuni's Zanzaburo, who is a mechanical warrior made from the armor of a nameless god. It could just be that those are cool vibes that people who write for Fate like. No, don't ask me how this one lines up with a guy who's supposed to have been married a couple of times and had a couple kids, mythological or not. Now, Fate does acknowledge that Tametomo was known as a human warrior of immense prowess, and because of both his construction and these legends, he is an exceptionally high-quality servant. Other than that, I don't really think we have any specific lore other than that he's a machine for killing Oni and demonic beasts. No idea why Tamayoshi would have taken him in as a son, let alone let him rattle around Kyushu fighting people. But yeah, he's a robot. An Oni fighting robot. Tametomo. That's going to be a 1%er of an improv joke. But Tametomo did appear in 6.5 Trom as a kind of cameo. He was a fairly important character, but he was non-combat, so it was probably a preview of the Hakkenden event. And obviously, that's much more central to the legends that was attached to him and also, coalesced by Takezawa Baken in the Shinsetsu Yumiharizuki being much more central to the story. You've probably completed the event, but this is not the venue where I discuss event story, so we'll leave it at that one for now and move on to mechanics. So, mechanics. Tametomo is an SSR archer, which is a pretty loaded slot. He's got pretty high attack, but median HP. He's not at the bottom level, but in the middle. He's Q, AA, BB, average hit counts, and NP gain. His Noble Phantasm uses what I call patented anti-asshole technology, TM. It's an AoE buster which gives 1 turn of Pierce Invul and 1 turn of Ignored Defense. First, it increases his buster by 20% on water side for the 1 turn, and deals bonus damage to lawful-type enemies based on overcharge. Very solid. The damage is fairly consistent, if not flashy. His first skill is kind of a Mana Burst-type skill. It's a 3/3 turns of Buster up 30 to 50%, so 3 times 3 turns. Very solid stuff. It's also 3 turns of 20 to 30% crit up, nothing to write home about, but still, extra damage is damage. Second skill is the 20 to 30% battery. It also gives him a 1-time 3 turns guts for only 1 to 2k, but If the Guts is used, Tametomo removes all debuffs from himself and gives himself 1 time 3 turns of a 10 to 20% NP damage up. So the Guts isn't super huge, but it does come with some extras if it procs. Final skill gives him 5 turns of sure hit and a 5-turn regen buff to give him 5 to 10% NP per turn and a 1-time 5 turns NP damage up on each turn, which is pretty good. Passives are just MRC and IA B, independent action B, I should say. So extra critty damagey critty. So there's not really a lot to say about Tametomo. He's not a subtle unit. His NP defeats hard defenses and defense buffs every time. It does do bonus damage as well. Lawful is pretty good. Not as much as like Chaotic or Evil, but it's a decent slice. This makes him well-suited to story fights where the buffs are likely to come up, just consistently doing damage to enemies who try and cheat their way out of not taking damage. But his trait damage also means that you can use him in farming, plus he has big native attack, so that's perfectly fine. You can use skills like his NP and Buster buffs to stack the damage. The main thing is that while Tametomo is permanent and thus hypothetically always accessible from the point when his primary banner ends, which is still ongoing as of the time I'm shooting this video at least, he doesn't really outpace the other heavy hitters in AoE Buster Archers. Like, Ishtar and Tesla have been solid units for years in this slot, but obviously, being limited and story locked respectively, you kind of have to go out of your way to roll them. So, if you're newer to FGO, you haven't rolled on those limited banners or gotten lucky yet, if you've gotten a Tametomo either on his banner or just you catch him at any point in the future, and you happen to see this video, hey, thanks. He's a decently solid option. If you already are like, NP5, level 120 Ishtar, Tametomo's not really going to compete. And that's, even if you removed the paint of the extra grails at NP levels, they'd still probably be roughly on the same level of utility. For team comp, it's pretty simple. Tametomo's primary Buster, you go with Buster support. He's got a 30% battery on himself and can do 10% per turn. I'm too sick to do the math, but I'm reasonably certain he can use reload strats with Koyan Skayas. If you're less concerned about simple farming and just getting him to fire 3 turns in a row, there's a bevy of Buster supports for longevity. Merlin and Osakabe Hime can extend those lifespans, and Merlin comes with more damage augments. You can also keep in mind budget supports like Leonidas and Billy Shakes. Basically, if you're gonna use the fact that he pierces and ignores defense every time to just grind out a story fight, even though AoEs are not usually ideal for killing bosses, stick him with a lot of the Buster classics to just make him chonke and, keep up the damage. Now, for CEs, his battery isn't huge, so you can try a K-scope or imaginary element to make that work out. If you're going the Koyan route, you can probably go something like Black Grail to maximize NP output, maximize NP damage. Otherwise, go for Buster and crit buffs to just make him punch all the harder. There are several 50% CEs just to keep him topped off if you want to go that route. Otherwise, just, keep it in mind and punch forward. He wants to Buster, he wants to crit. That's your strat. He will not be deterred by evades. So you want to talk, other stuff. Ascensions are pretty normals. Keep your eyes on stand arrows at the end, though. That is a bronze mat. Skills, however, can get pretty spicy. They're going to take 24 stand arrows per skill. And since he has a battery and a charge per turn, you're going to want to do a lot with both of those. It also does take 15 reactor cores, which, depending on how long you've been playing, you might not have a surplus of. You should be pretty solid for 45 of those, but, they're one of those mats that I think to myself, like, man, I don't have a lot of those in the bank. So it really depends on what servants you've been ascending and skill leveling. Now, Tametomo is permanent, so once his banner ends, you can hypothetically roll him at any time on a normal banner placement, barring certain setups like Lucky Bags or Valentine's where certain units are excluded. If you're hunting for him in particular, you have a couple of chances, first in Hakkenden, but also each year at White Day banners, because he is counted as male and is permanent, so he will have a rotation in that. But also in some Killmath banners. Those probably will get translated to Back to School or Thanksgiving reruns in the English server. And that's about everything. I hope that I have edited around or cut out all of my coughs. If I haven't, I'm sorry. I just forgot. My bad. But that's going to be Tametomo. I'm sorry it took me so long for what's kind of a compact script to get out here. Obviously, the spicy bit is the history, but, he's a simple, straightforward unit. I appreciate guys who have what I like to call my anti-asshole technology. NPs that pierce every time are cool, because they can't be dodged. But I hope you're looking forward to the OQ main interlude, and then, obviously, our anniversary not too far in the future. Let me double-check my calendar on that. Yeah, that's going to be that weekend. So we got a couple of weeks before then. Hopefully I can be fully better to record the Archetype Earth video, which will be a little weird because there'll be no history to talk about. But, you know, there'll be a few concepts to run by people, at least in the lore section. And obviously, you know, I joked about this, I think, a month ago. I checked our, like, research analytics. People are already searching for Archetype Earth shit, so I will try and make sure that video is ready to fire as soon as possible so you can enjoy it and get all your best luck out. Though, admittedly, if you have a lot of SSR servants who are fully leveled, or any servants, actually, who are fully leveled, it is basically all but guaranteed you'll get an arc. But, you know, I'm sure you would appreciate getting her sooner rather than later, so we'll check that one out. Okay, I had to pause the video there to cough really badly, so we're going to get on out of here. Please, please, like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, share it with your friends, share if you play Gravekeepers, that's another 10%er. Ring the bell, support us on Patreon, join our channel memberships. Please watch my Final Fantasy XIV streams. That's it from me. I'll see you next time for more Wanted. I'm going to try and die a little less. All right, cool. Okay, thanks, bye. And speaking of our patrons, real quick, let me give a shout out to all our patrons, but especially Adam DeHart, Blast OG, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, Flightless Icebird, Jeremy Vasquez, JDV9000, Just the Fake, Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Sharvor, Sean Pryor, some guy named Bob, and Varian the Crow. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon.